G'day, Michael from Ironbark Game Studio, and welcome to the second part of the Game Ready character creation series. So in the first part we created a base mesh, and we also considered what components of our character will be modelled as part of the base mesh, and what will be created separately. So in summary, the general idea is that armor pieces that span across a single bone and not across a joint can be modelled as separate meshes. Armor, such as the breastplate, will be modelled as part of the base mesh as it spans across multiple joints along the spine, and modelling it separately may create problems with clipping during animation. Finally, loose hanging cloth, so that could include anything from capes, dresses or scarves, that will be modelled separately and it'll make creating it far easier. So let's get into it. In Blender, I have my base mesh and my 3 reference images from last time. I have called the base mesh body, and I've put my images in this collection called template images, so I can just turn this on and off whenever I need to. So let's just turn that off for now. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the breastplate, or the armor pieces which are going to be part of the base mesh. So I'm just going to drag and drop my reference images in of the actual character, like so. And I'm just going to grab these, Alt-R, Alt-G, back to the middle. Let's just scale them down, rotate them on the x-axis by 90 degrees, and we'll just kind of vaguely line these up. We're not going to be using these as a direct reference like we did for the template, outline templates. Something like that. Sort of move these back a little bit. And I'm basically just going to eyeball these as I go along and create the different pieces. So I'm going to be modeling the breastplate on top of the mesh that we've already got. So I'm just going to go into front view here. And I might even just move this reference image up a little bit so I can see the breastplate there. And what I can do before I start editing the mesh, I can actually draw out the shapes that I want. So I'm going to activate the annotate tool. So if you press shift and space, that will open up this menu here. I'm going to go down to annotate. And this is where I can just draw freely wherever I want to. And I'm kind of just going to block out the outline of where I want the armor pieces. It's going to draw a line around here. That's going to come down, come into the middle there. Oh, that's a little bit messy. I can neaten that up though. We go shift space and we press 8. That's going to give us our eraser. Shift space, go back to the annotate, which is 5. Then let's loop that up and around there. And this is the general shape which we're going to try and almost cut out. So I'm going to hit W just to go back to my regular tool and hit Tab to enter edit mode. And I've got to either move the vertices we already have or add new ones in to sort of line up with the shapes that we want. So we could add additional edge loops. So if we go Control R, I think I'm going to need an edge loop along here. And that's just going to kind of line up with that edge there. And I reckon I'm going to need another edge loop around in here. So let's just kind of vaguely line up these vertices, just double tapping G and sliding them to roughly where I think they should go. This doesn't have to be perfect. We will neaten this up later, but it is good using the vertex slide, just so it doesn't deform the overall shape that we have. Okay, so I think that's about what we can do with what we have. Now we've got to start adding in some additional edges. So I'm going to use the knife tool for this. I'm going to press K for the knife tool, and I'm just going to cut in the edges that I want, sort of conforming around the outline that I drew. This is going to create a lot of Ngons. Don't worry about that for now. We're going to clean those up at a later point. So with the knife tool, left click on a vertex, edge, or anywhere on the face, then left click on another area. When you're happy with that, press enter, and that'll create edges between those points. If it's not that straight, It doesn't matter too much, we can neaten these up at a later point. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good, so I can get rid of my outline now. So I'm just going to go shift space, and then I'm going to hit 8 for my eraser. Just going to rub all this out. There. And just hit W to go back to the default tool. Let's just move these vertices, try to straighten up the lines which we want straight, and make the curvy bits a bit smoother. That one probably doesn't need to be there, so I'm just going to select those M and then merge it last. Just grab these ones in. Okay, and I think that's looking pretty good. So I'm going to come around the back now. So I'm just going to mark this as sort of like the strap, and the other edge of the strap was this one here. And I want this to sort of come straight down. Just going to select this one and this vertex and just hit J to join them. Just going to straighten these ones up, and I might even just go these two and go J to join. And I almost want another edge going through here. Let's just K to cut that, move that across, straighten this up. Alright. So we have made quite the mess with all of our cuts in here. Still need to sort of slide these in. Couldn't quite see that from the front perspective. So now what we have to do is we need to convert all of these Ngons that we've created into quads and possibly some tries as well. So we're going to be using the knife tool for a lot of this. We're also going to be using the connect vertex path tool with J. So that's going to create quads in that area there. So that's looking a lot neater already. Come down here. Let's actually just merge these two together. That's going to create a nicer edge flow around through there. And same with this one here. Let's merge those at center. And might do the same here, although we do have quads on either side. So what we might do instead is we might put a cut through there. Go K. Cut straight through there, and then join that, and then dissolve that edge. So keep that edge flow coming up through there. Also have a little bit more geometry to play around, so I might just straighten this up as well. Okay, and let's just move that up a little bit as well. Cool. Coming up through here, it's all looking pretty neat so far. This is a little bit messy, so the idea was that this is the outside border sort of around there. So I might join that and then just dissolve this. It's going to make it a little bit easier for this part in here. And how are we going with this edge flow? So it sort of comes up, stops around here, so we want to clean this bit up a little bit. The best way might actually be dissolve that edge, and we'll join that one. So it sort of continues the edge flow around there. It might actually be better if we create a rip here. Just slide that down. Slide that up a little bit. delete that face. And then we can bridge all of these faces. Alright, so that edge flow goes up around, which is good, and that sort of keeps that edge flow going nicely around as well, so that's working okay. We do have this little instance here, so I'm just going to join that and dissolve that one to make a quad out of that. I think the main problem on this side left is this this shoulder bit, so we do want to keep that structure there. We don't necessarily have to keep that edge flow going all the way through, so maybe we can just delete these three faces. And create quads out of those. Coming around to the back. Sort of got this strap. It's going to come down there. So let's just create a cut along here. It's going to turn those into quads. And we can cut along there. We might dissolve that cut there. Do have a trine here, so let's merge those. Let's dissolve that edge and join that up. Okay, that's gonna work, I reckon. Awesome. And we've got one last little problem. We've got a try and an Ngon. That shouldn't be too hard. So join that and dissolve that. And we have two quads now. Alright, very nice. So let's just have another look to see if we've got anything missing. And it's looking pretty neat from what I can see. Alright, now we're going to do some extrusions to bring out these armor pieces from the body. So it kind of depends what you want to achieve here and what parts are going to be sort of extruded out or indented inwards. I'm going to grab all of these faces here to start off with, and I'm going to extrude them all outwards. These along the shoulder strap there and along there. Okay. E to extrude. And let's just scale it on the y-axis first. And I'm going to deselect those faces around the bottom. And those ones there. And I'm going to go, oh, and I'll also deselect these ones around the neck. Then I'll just go GZ to move them up a little bit. Might even just manually come in here and move these ones up. Move those ones out a little bit. Might add a little bit more shaping around here. So that's the first part of the armor extruded there. So now I'm going to select the next part, which is going to be extruded out again. So let's go to face selection. I'm going to select these parts. That there. And let's go E to extrude. Just going to pull it out a little bit. Like that. Going to extrude out around the neck. So around there. Though I do actually want this one to be down a little bit like that. And then I'll just select these again. There and there. Extrude. Just right click to cancel. Scale on the Y. And then I'll just grab these sort of outside ones and grab them out on the X axis. Alright. And the final bit is this part down the center, which I'm going to extrude inwards. So E, pull in. We are going to get this situation where we have this overlapping geometry down here, but we will fix this later. Okay, so far so good. We might want to make some little adjustments. I reckon it would be nice if these straps pulled a little bit further in. Same with the parts around the neck, I think. These bits are sort of hanging over the edge, so I'm just going to slide them up a little bit. Same with these ones here. Maybe not too far, I think they're out a little bit. So I'm just going to bring them in just a tad. Cool, pretty happy with that so far. And across might do a little bit of an extra detail here. So let's select these three faces. I'm going to go I to inset them. Just going to move these vertices. Might even just straighten them up. So I'm just going to select those four vertices. Go SX0 so they're nice and straight. Same with this side, SX0. These ones SY0, SY0. Why not do it for these ones as well? SY0, SY0. And let's just extrude this up a little bit. That could make it a little bit more even. Cool. Just noticed that we do have a try and an Ngon right in the middle here, so I probably should have seen that. I'll just join this one, J, and then X, dissolve edge. It's not the neatest thing. Kind of tempted to do this another way, so I might go J between those ones and dissolve that and dissolve that. So that's looking pretty good so far. Might just neaten this one up there, sort of sticking out a little bit. So we've got an instance of an overlapping face down here. So I'm just going to delete that face there and delete that face there. And I want to move this edge up so it's sort of in line like that. I'm going to select these two here, press F face. We still have this awkward little gap in here. I'm just going to go to the knife tool with K. I'm going to draw a line up to there, enter. Then I'm just going to merge these two vertices together. And we do have a try in here, but it's not a huge deal. I did actually make a mistake up the top here. I want another little bit of a an overlap. So let's fix that now. Going to remove these faces. I'm going to turn on the vertex snapping. Hold down Control whilst grabbing. Just select those vertices there. M, merge. Right. And it's probably going to be easiest if I rip the vertices. Move that in close. We'll knife that to there. And then we'll merge these two vertices together. Okay, let's just do a little bit of reshaping here. Kind of want that to be straighter. Let's just move this whole thing across. Alright, obviously it is a lot easier to edit this before you make all the extrusions, but it's certainly not impossible to make extra adjustments once you've done the extrusions. Okay, I'm going to stop fiddling because I think that is good enough for now. As I fiddle some more. Alright, so that is the chest plate pretty much done. Gonna come down to the foot now, so we're going to do the boots cut into the base mesh as well. This is going to be a fair bit simpler. So I'm going to come down here and just shape this because I want it to have a bit higher up the front. Just grab these ones, roll them a little bit there, and I'm going to add in another edge loop, and I'm going to pull it all the way up to the top there. And then hit S to scale it out. So we've sort of got two edges on top of each other and then just scaling one out. I might just scale it on the X-axis first and then on the Y-axis, so I'm not scaling it upwards. So we've sort of got this lip where the boots are going to be. That's pretty much all we'll do for now for those. Now let's come back up to the neck here, and I'm just going to select all of these faces here. We do not need these, and these are quite the mess from all our extrusions. We're just going to delete them. If we did need geometry, we could extrude these faces back across, but we're never going to see this area of the neck because the helmet or the head is always going to be hiding it. All we really need is a little bit of a lip, so I'm going to extrude this and scale it in just slightly. Maybe move it along the X-axis just a little bit. And before I go any further, I want to tilt the neck forward a little bit. So I'm going to select my geometry at the top. I'm going to go to the side view, and I'm going to use the shear tool. And I'm just going to grab it on the Z-axis and just kind of lean it forward a little bit. Might even do the same with the one below. Okay, go back to my default tool. And let's just extrude this up. And I probably do want it in line with that sort of angle a little bit, so I'll just move it forward just a touch. Kind of don't like how angled that bit is there, so I'm just going to move that forward. It might even that, and let's just extrude this inwards and scale it. That, grab it on the X, bring it in just a little bit, and that's going to do for now. We don't need to fill in the rest of the geometry in the neck hole. So there's one little additional piece of geometry I want, which probably isn't really necessary, but it shows off the technique of adding additional geometry to what you've already got. Pretty useful if you want to do anything with hard surface objects that you have that you want to sort of attach to a more organic mesh. So I'm going to go Shift A, and I'm going to add a cube. I'm going to have to scale this down, and I'm going to bring it up. This is going to be a little detail on the front of the neck. Something like this. Because we have a mirror modifier on, I am going to have to delete half the cube, otherwise it's just overlapping itself. So I'll delete those vertices. You can see that the cube is already there because it's mirrored. Going to add a cut, going to scale this thing. Kind of want to line this up with the edges that I've already got. And I want to make this kind of like a little bit of a rounded thing. I'm just going to slide these back. We want to delete the faces on the back of this thing. I realized I've sort of put it in the wrong position. I want this top bit to be lined up with that bit there. Alright, so that's where we want it, and I kind of want to nestle this back, and I might even just extrude it down one more time. And delete those back faces. This is a lot of effort for a very tiny detail, which probably doesn't matter, but we're going for it anyway. So now I've kind of got to combine everything back up together. Okay, a little bit of a pointless detail, but we've added it. Alright, so let's shade this model now. So at the moment, we can see all of the geometry, see all these squares, whatnot. We want this to all be nice and smooth, with the exception of these edges on the armor. So we want the edges of the armor to appear hard, but we want the rest of it to appear smooth. Let's just hide these images for now. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to Shade Smooth. That's going to make it look kind of nicer, but we can see that all of our sort of like hard edges, they're looking pretty weird with the shading. So we're going to have to harden those. So I'm going to go to the Object Data Properties down here, and I'm going to go into the Normals and Auto Smooth. So that's going to smooth angles which are 30 degrees or above. We actually want to better target those areas though, as opposed to just a flat angle which is kind of smooth. So I'm just going to drag this all the way up to 180 degrees, and it'll look like nothing has happened, but this is going to allow us to target particular areas which we want to be hard. So I'm going to go into Edit Mode, and I'm going to select all of the outside edges. So holding down Alt and left clicking, holding down Shift, that's going to be the quickest way to select all of these outside edges. Okay, I think that's everything. We can always add more if we've missed out on them. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to come down to Mark Sharp, select that. And that's going to look a lot nicer. So any edge which we don't want to have this this smooth effect on, Mark Sharp, and that's going to give it a hard edge. Oops, got one little extraneous bit there, so I'm just going to right click and clear sharp. And I think we're pretty good. I've noticed that we do have an edge loop in here, which kind of don't really need, so I'm just going to go X and dissolve it, and just turn this into a try. Go. Just going to save out on a few edges. So there we go, we have some hard surface details modeled onto our soft surface body. So now it's pretty much time to model all of the other details on our character. So just basing it off my reference image here. So I'm going to start off with creating the belt. I think it's a nice sort of central piece to base the location of all the other pieces around there. So I'm going to start off with a cube. And I'm just going to scale it down in edit mode, bring it out. That. And I will be using the mirror modifier, so I'm going to go Control R, delete half of it, vertices, and add the mirror modifier, turn on clipping. I want it to be fairly sort of thin, and then from the front, I want one edge cut, edge loop, and I want it to terminate in a single point there. Delete this face and merge those. Going to add another cube. Because I've got clipping turned on, I do need to turn this off before I scale it down and move it out, otherwise it's going to get stuck on itself. And I do also want one at the back as well. And this is going to be a little bit further up. Move it in. Just a little side one. Merge these at center to create a point. Alright, let's add some little details to these before we start sort of rotating them in a different orientation. So I'm going to use I to inset, and I do want to delete these ones here, and then just move that across. Here, I again, the loop, extrude it in, and something similar for the back. Select that face loop, and just extrude it inwards. So now what I want to do is I want to create a strap that goes from this face to this one here, but I want these to be kind of the same width so that the strap has the same width going through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to the overlays, and I'm going to turn on edge length. This gives me a measurement of the length of an edge, funny enough. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to press I. And what I'm really concerned about is the double tap G. I want to slide this up. Okay, I see what's happening. It's snapping with this merge here, so I'm just going to turn this up a little bit. There we go, now I can slide that along. And let's go for maybe a 0.3. Sorry, 0.03. And we go I for these ones. It's going to be a little bit too much for them, so maybe we'll go 0.025. Select this edge, slide it up. 0.025. Out there. And we'll do it for this one as well. Select that face, press I. Just go there for now. 0.0, it's a little bit too much. There, 0.025. Alright, close enough. Don't really need the edge length turned on anymore, so I'll just turn that off so it's not in the way. And now for all 4 of these faces here, this looks a little bit too thick, so I might just scale those in on the X. Yeah, so with all 4 of these faces selected, I'm going to go to face up here, and I'm going to go to extrude individual faces. So that's going to extrude them along their own normal direction. So they should all be equal length, but sort of pointed in the direction we want them to. Now I'm going to go to my transform pivot point, and I'm going to select individual origins. So now if I press E to extrude again, and just right click to cancel, and then go S to scale, they're going to be scaling around their own origin. Go about here, and the default is actually medium point, so I'm going to set that back. The shortcut for that, by the way, is period. So medium point. I want this to be a little bit wider, so let's just go SY, and I want to, and then for these two I'm going to go SX. I want to get them into position. I'm going to go L to select just that piece there, move it and rotate it, Control L, select that piece, rotate, rotate X. Okay, now we can bridge them. So I'm going to select these two faces and bridge them. It's just going to be easier if these pieces are already in position. Do the same for this side. Obviously, this belt needs additional edge loops so that we can shape it. So Control R, mouse wheel, let's add a few of these. And let's press G to just grab them out. And we're just going to grab them out, sort of chunk at a time, and just kind of shape where we want the belt to be. Sort of thinking that this is a little bit too low, so I might just bring it up. Do the same with this one. Might even move this piece up as well. And we'll add a few loop cuts in here and pull them all out. Okay, so we have our belt in there. Now we do also want to smooth shade this, so if we hit tab, we can sort of see the individual faces in here, so I'll right click and go shade smooth. But once again, we want our hard edges, so I'm going to go into my object data properties, turn on auto smooth. That's actually looking pretty good by default, but let's just bump this up all the way to 180. So now we want to add the hard edges. So I'm just going to press / to go into isolate mode. So that's going to hide all of the other meshes in the scene. I'm going to press tab, and instead of individually selecting all of the edges, I'm going to go to select, and I'm going to go to select sharp edges. So it's going to do a pretty good job of detecting all of the sort of hard edges that we want to mark sharp. We do want to mark that one sharp. Otherwise, I think it's done a pretty good job. Let's just double check it hasn't selected anything that it shouldn't have. Alright, so right click and mark sharp. Press tab again, and that's looking pretty nice. So again, we've got our nice smooth shading on areas that are sort of rounded, a little bit more organic, and then the hard shading on all the hard surface areas. Press / again to get out of isolate, and that is the belt done. So moving on to the lower belt. Again, this is going to be with a cube, so Shift A, create a cube there. And we are going to mirror this. I'm going to delete one side, add a mirror modifier. So I'm just going to move this in to where I want the sort of position to be. And I'm just going to extrude this in little pieces, sort of grab them in, rotate them around the Z axis, extrude, rotate on the Z, so grab on the Y, and I'm going to do this all the way around the body. When we get to the last face, we just want to delete it and then extrude the final one in, and we want to delete these inside faces, so I'm just going to go into isolate and just delete them. Let's add a little bit more geometry around here, just so we can shape it a little bit nicer. Let's just bring in the top edges just a little bit so they can form around the body a bit nicer. Maybe let's round this off a little bit as well. Alright, I'm going to make just a little detail in the front, and I'm going to extrude these. This has probably created some faces on the inside. I'm going to add some extra little details on the belt. And we don't need that back face either, so you can go merge these at last, create our point. And then for you, my plan for you is little kind of attachment points for accessories on the belt. They're a little bit tall. Let's just scale them down and keep duplicating these out. And let's shade this smooth, tick on auto smooth, select sharp edges, and then go mark sharp, and there we go. Let's add some little containers on the side here, and little canisters that can be on these little attachment points. So again, I'm going to add a new cube, tab, scale it down, grab it out on the X, grab it up. I will turn on mirror so that we can see it on the other side as well. Something like that. And we're going to add 2 cuts here. Scale them on the Z axis. And then I'm going to extrude this out. I'm going to add 3 cuts in here. And I'm just going to manually scale these on the Y axis to create a bit of a rounded look. Okay, something like that. Now I'm going to delete all of these faces here and also along the bottom. And I'm going to create a face from the top to that sort of middle edge there and down there. And now I know how many cuts I need along here, so I'm just going to go Control R and add in 3, Control R, add in 3. And I want this to also be curved and line up with this, so I'm going to grab these vertices and with the snapping set to vertex, I'm going to hold down Control whilst pressing G. Sorry, I'm going to go G, Y, Control, and just snap them along the Y axis. And now it's just a matter of filling in the faces. So fill in that first one, deselect those 2 edges, then we can bridge those. Cool, and we have a nifty little canister there. Let's also shade this smooth. I want hard edges there, around the back there. And I do want them sort of around those edges. Auto smooth, 180, right click, and mark sharp. And that looks pretty good. So let's just move that into position there. Cool. Possibly could be a little bit bigger. Yeah, something like that. Cool. And let's make some other little capsules to go along the belt here. So I'm going to add a UV sphere. This one. We're going to open up the Add UV Sphere menu here, and the segments I'm going to set to 8, and the rings I'm going to set to 6, so it's fairly low poly. It's going to be a pretty small object, and let's scale it down. I'm not actually going to move it away from the origin point. I'm going to keep it on the origin point. It's going to make it a little bit easier for us to deal with it. And I'm going to select this edge here. I'm going to press V to rip it. Then I'm going to hit L to select the bottom connected faces. Sort of move them apart. something like that. And then I'm just going to bridge these faces back together. Cool. Probably still a little big. Let's try something like that. Just going to shade smooth. We don't really need to have hard edges anywhere. And I will place these around the bout, but I'm going to keep one out here, and this is going to be sort of like the original master version of it. And then I'm going to hit Alt-D to duplicate special. So when I duplicate special, let's just put this in position. So say I've got a whole bunch of these duplicated capsules, and I decide that maybe I want to change the proportions of them, maybe they're a little bit too big. I can come into this sort of master version, hit tab, and any edits I make to this is also going to edit the ones that are duplicate linked. So when we Alt-D, they're going to be duplicate linked. If I want to make any edits like this, then it's going to affect that one as well. So selecting them, Alt-D, and just placing them along the bout. I'm also hitting Shift-Z to restrict the movement to the Y and X. So when I hit Alt-D and hit Shift-Z, then it's not going to move it up and down, it's just going to move it on the Y and Z. Okay, that's the lower belt done. So I want to add some details around the stomach area now. So we've got these sort of like armor plates which are going to be attached on. So once again, Shift A, add in a cube, scale this down, and I do want to keep the origin point in the center of the object because I'm going to mirror it top, bottom, and left and right. So it's going to be helpful if the origin point's right in the middle. And let's move this cube to the right of the origin point there. That. And I'm going to go into my modifiers and add a mirror modifier. And on the Y, and it's going to be on the Z as well. Turn clipping on. And I'm just going to delete the bottom there. And we can see that's mirrored on the Z as well. Cool, so let's create this design here, and we might bring this whole thing down a little bit as well. Bring that up, extrude that out. I'm going to add another cube. I'm adding in these extra edges here, even though I'm not using them to sort of curve around or do anything extra. They're going to be used when I put this on the body and I want to curve it around the body. So we'll go with something like that. I think it might look a little, the top one's a little bit too narrow, so I might just bring these down a little bit. And that is way in the body, so let's pull this out on the Y, so it's snapped to the other one. We don't need any of these back faces, so I'm just going to delete them. They're going to be hidden by the body. And let's just select everything, move it back. And I think these should go a little bit closer together. So I double tapped Z when rotating, so it's on the local axis, so R double tap Z. Good, and I'm just going to grab these ones, pull them on the Y. Go select, sharp edges, mark sharp, and then right click and shade smooth. I reckon that could do with a little bit more editing. It still looks a bit sort of too narrow. Yeah, that's looking a bit nicer there. Let's make some straps going around sort of underneath from the chest plate. And it's going to connect up to where a backpack is going to go. So I'm going to add in another cube, scale that one down. I'm going to rotate this one and then just sort of freehand it a little bit. Then I'm just going to extrude these out. And if I double tap R, that goes into my trackball rotate, which can be a little bit easier to sort of line things up. It doesn't really matter if these straps are a little bit messier. And we'll just leave it there when it sort of roughly lines up with that strap there. So there's going to be a backpack. Once again, we don't need the inside faces, so delete all of these. Just make sure that these are actually sort of hidden by the body there. Let us add one little detail there. So let's add in another cube. Get this into position. Select sharp edges, mark seam, shade smooth. Alright, cool. Let's add in a mirror modifier, and I'm going to Shift D to duplicate the mesh down a little bit. Just going to move it in, and I'll manually readjust anything that needs fixing. In fact, we don't actually need the faces on the inside there. So those are the straps done, so it's coming together pretty nicely. I'm going to speed up through parts of the armor modeling, as most of the techniques are going to be fairly repetitive, so feel free to skip through once you've seen enough, but I will show how I created each of the different pieces as you may find some inspiration. So now let's create some pieces of armor. Let's go along the arms to start with. We'll create like a shoulder pad. So let's add in a cube. And we're going to scale it down. And let's bring the whole thing up, keeping the origin in the center. Something like that. Going to half it. Delete the back. Add a mirror modifier. This will be on the y-axis this time, and we will put on clipping. And we could use the spin tool for this one. We want to create a bit of an arc going around here. So let us turn on spin, and awkwardly it is down there, and it is on the wrong axis as well. So it's currently spinning around the Z. Whereas we want it around the X. So first let's just decrease the number of steps so it's a little easier to see what we're doing. Let's go 4. And the axis we want it on is going to be the X. So let's go 1 to the X and 0 for the Z. It's obviously way too far out, and it's also in the wrong direction. So let's go -1 on the X instead. And now we can bring this point in. And try to get a nice curve around the shoulder. I reckon something like that's probably going to be pretty good. So I just hit W to go back to my default tool. Let's just grab this central edge loop up, just so it's nice and curvy. I want to put this into a better position. It's not quite big enough, so let's scale this up outside of edit mode. I'm going to rotate this on the Y. And I'm going to add in some edge loops and sort of like curve them down. Just going to grab on the Z, rotate on the Y. And I might want to bring these faces out a little bit more. Let's just select those sharp edges, marking the sharp, smooth it, and we do want one on the other side, so assuming we're finished with editing this shoulder pad, we can go and apply the mirror modifier. We can go right click and go set origin to 3D cursor, and then we can apply another mirror modifier, but now it's pivoted around that point there. Cool. Let's add a bit of armor for the upper arm. Let's add a cube, and then in edit mode I'm going to move it up across. We're not going to mirror this one around its own point, so let's just add a mirror modifier so it applies on the other side. And we're just going to move it, scale it a little bit so it sort of encompasses the full arm. And I just want to edge slide to get a bit of shaping. Okay, something like that. Now we can start adding additional extrusions. Let's actually just delete all these inside faces. We're not going to need them. And it's just going to make it a bit easier for us to grab those outside loops as well. So we can just alt left click. And I kind of want it to flare out a little bit. So scale this down a little bit more and then scale that out a little bit. Now I do want to cap off the ends, so clipping through the arm a little bit, not that you're going to see it, but we don't need to fully fill up the hole because we're not going to see that hole. Might even add another cut in here, scale that in. And we'll add a little bit more detail, so I'm going to add another cut here, and I'm going to extrude that out. And I want this sort of like little pod or capsule or container sort of sitting on here, as if this was a bit of a strap. And I kind of want these little capsules to go in there, so I'm going to create a cylinder. And we'll just reduce this to 8. Also going to set the cap fill to triangle fan. Now we don't need faces on the inside there, so we can just delete them. And I do want to create a little bit of a an edge or a bevel around here. Grab this whole thing, move it down, and just rotate it. We'll shade this smooth, auto smooth it, select the sharp edges. So I've selected all these ones around here. So I'll just deselect all of these. And we also want these to be smooth as well, so let's select all of these and right click and clear sharp. Alright, let's do the armor around the forearm. So going to be another cube. Let's just give it a mirror modifier so it's on the other side as well. And let's roughly scale it to the size that we want. Then we'll add a whole bunch of edge loops in here so we've got something to work with. And I don't actually need those faces, so I'm just going to delete them. I do want to make sure that it fits around the fin on the other side. And I want to do something a little bit interesting with the top here. Just going to grab these edges and I want to kind of flatten them out a little bit and I'm going to go SZ0 so that they're completely flat, then just rotate on the Y, and then I'm going to extrude them up. And I'm going to round them off. I want this to be a little bit straighter in there. And I kind of want to extrude these out a little bit as well. And I want to fill in these areas here, extrude, scale, extrude again, scale, and then pull that back. And I want those little capsules on this one. I'm just going to take those, and then I'll separate them with P, and I'll combine them with Control J. And I might actually just separate them with P again. Remember last time they got caught when I tried to select the outside edges? And deselect the ones we don't want, and we might add those ones in. And we'll mark those as sharp, smooth. Let's combine them together, Control J. So that is the armor done. Moving on to the leg armor, I'm also going to create a cube. I'm going to scale it down, and I do want the origin point to be in the center, so I'm just going to move this up where I want to have it on the upper leg. And I'm going to split it in half, delete one side, and add the mirror modifier. And I'm going to scale this bottom face inwards, and then add in some loop cuts. The top and bottom faces are just going to get in the way, so I'm going to delete all of these. Making sure that the leg doesn't clip through at all. Okay, let's add in some extra edge loops to give it some more shape. And now for a bit of detail, I'm going to use the knife cut tool to cut in a diagonal. And I'm going to extrude these faces out. Just going to scale it on the Y first, and then manually pull out these side faces. And I might just shape this with a nicer curve. I'm going to grab these faces on the bottom here, and I'm going to extrude them down into sort of a point. And I might just rotate this whole piece so it's a little bit more in line with the leg, as it's on a slight angle. So out of edit mode in object mode, and let's just edge slide those ones in. And let's just add a few more edge loops in there so we can shape it a bit nicer. And I might also curve it in. Now we've just got to make sure that there's a little bit of an overlap here that connects up with the leg. And we'll do the same for the bottom here. Just extrude that. And let's shade that smooth. It's got a few ones we don't want, so let's deselect those. Okay, right click, mark sharp. Moving on to the bit of knee armor, goes in this sort of slot here. I'm going to add in another cube. Let's scale it down. And let's delete half of it, add our mirror modifier. And we also want the bottom and the top to mirror as well. We'll add in a few cuts. And I want to create this little plate that extrudes out of here, so I'm going to use the knife tool for this. So hit K, these faces, I'm going to extrude them out just on the X for now. Might actually just SX0 to make them nice and straight. And I kind of want this to form an edge down here, creating a try. So let's just use K. And we'll cut down there. And whilst we're here, we have created an Ngon on this side. And I'm just trying to line everything up, make it a little bit sort of neater for the next step. And I might even put another cut down the middle here because we're going to try and bend this, and we need a bit more geometry if we want to bend it nicely. And we want to bend this, so we might just try the proportional editing tool. And I'm just going to go grab Y, GY. Just going to mouse wheel down because our circle's quite large. I think it's looking a little bit too thick, so I'm going to bring in some of these faces. And I want to curve this back now. So let's try the proportional editing again, just on this center line of vertices now. Shade smooth, add our auto smooth, turn that up to 180, select sharp edges, and let's just move this into position. Possibly a little bit too curved, so we can always just come back in here, and I'm going to double tap Y, move them along the local Y axis, G, Y, Y. Now I want to apply a mirror modifier to both of these pieces so that they appear on the other side of the leg, just so we can see how everything's looking. So I'm going to have to apply the mirror modifiers I already have on them, and apply that one there. And I need to set the origin point back to the center of the scene, so I'll select both, right click, set origin, origin to 3D cursor, so they appear there now. And we'll add a mirror modifier to the kneecap, and a mirror modifier to the leg. There is a slight problem though, is that this one is slightly rotated offset. That's because we rotated the mesh in object mode. So I'm going to go Control A, and I'm going to apply the rotation. And now that it knows that this is its final rotation, it's going to rotate the mirrored piece there. It's a little bit of overlap here, so we might just come in here and move this so there's a bit of a gap. Okay, let's just scale this whole outside ring in on the X a little bit. Maybe even that one there as well. Something like that. Clipping a little bit through the back of the leg there, so let's just move these ones out as well. Alright. So that's most of the armor done. We've got to do the helmet now though. So I'm going to add a new cube to the scene. Scale it down. Bring it up. And I don't actually have a head model, which would be a nice reference to use for a helmet. But I do have my template images here, so I might just use the head of our template and then model the helmet around the size for that head. So let's delete half the cube and add our mirror modifier. And sort of roughly line it up with the head. Set a bunch of edge loops to the side and just edge slide them in. We'll then add a couple of cuts to the front and a bunch to the side. And we'll do a bunch more shaping, so this is just going to be edge sliding. And here I'm just trying to neaten up the edges, trying to keep them relatively straight and in line with each other. It's going to help when I start trying to add in some extra details. Alright, that's been pretty neat so far. We don't need any of the faces underneath the helmet, so let's just delete these so that they don't get in the way of anything else. And let's try and block out some detailing. So I want a sort of a line coming around from the back of the head and then sort of coming down in a point at the visor. So let's use the knife tool and sort of cut in a line down here. And what I want to have happen is I want the edge loop to flow through up there. So let's delete those faces and start adding in quads. So we've got this problem with this try here, so let's just merge some vertices together. So let's merge those, and we'll just merge this line of vertices going up there. So that has mostly solved that. We have lost a little bit of a shaping up top, but we can always add in another edge loop around there. Main thing is we've just cleaned that up and also kept our nice edge flow through that line we just created. We do have some awkward tries along here as well, which we might need to clean up. So we can always add in an edge loop down there. And let's just neaten things up a little bit. We do want another bit of detailing around this area of the mouth here, so I'm going to cut in the shape that I want. So we're kind of just blocking out the details here before we make any extrusions. Once we've made those extrusions, it's going to be a lot harder to add more details or block out more details. I do want this line of vertices to be fairly straight, so I'm going to extrude a sort of crest from the helmet here. So let's straighten up these vertices here. This is all going to form the crest along the top of the helmet. So the crest is fairly out of the way, so I might as well just extrude this now. And we'll just need to manually adjust these. And we'll just edge slide these edges in just a little bit so it tapers like that. Maybe tape it down a little bit as well. Alright, it's looking fairly straight, sort of got this nice tapering curve to it. And let's block in the eyes now. So I haven't bothered cleaning up this side of the helmet yet. A lot of tries here, but we're going to sort of cut in the shape of an eye, so it's going to get even messier from here. So we'll go with something like this for now. Let's clean up this area now that we've got it all blocked out. And I'm going to get the shape of the eye in. Going to delete those faces and rebuild it a little bit more neatly now. And let's create this little sort of indent around the lens. Probably extrude this out one more time just to give it a bit more geometry and shaping. And I'm just using proportional editing so I can move sort of large chunks around to get a the shape that I want. And now I want to create a cut in here. And I'm going to grab these, I'm going to grab this sort of mouth area, and I'm just going to extrude that. And let's just edge slide this so it's not as sharp. We don't need these faces down the bottom, so let's delete these ones. I think I want to make this a little bit narrower, so I'll turn on proportional editing again. Just gonna grab all this side stuff and push it in. Maybe I'll grab the top out as well. That'll help with it. Do a little bit more cleanup, get rid of some more unnecessary sort of vertices and faces. Okay, let's do the sort of underneath area. Now we don't need to fill all of this in because you're never going to be able to see up this, but we need to, but we do need a bit of geometry under here, just in case the character tilts their head up or down just a little bit. And I want to line this up so that vertex sort of connects with that one, and then just merge those two together. It's got a little bit messy at the back there, so let's just readjust that. And then we can extrude this full loop in now. And we'll pull it up a couple of times as well. So that should be enough. The character sort of tilts their head up enough where you sort of can see a little bit underneath the chin. I want a little bit of a sort of circular bevel around the outside here. So I'm going to add another loop cut. And I want 2 edge loops around here. And now we just need to fill this face back in. So pretty simply, this is just going to be 2 quads. Could do with a little bit more shaping here. Kind of want to create this flat area here with some like lamps or lights or something. So I'm going to delete these 4 faces here. And I want this to sort of come out. And then this is going to go in. And then I'm going to extrude these edges. If we want to make sure they're perfectly straight, we can go S. Y0, and then I'm going to join these 2 together, then I'm going to fill in the rest. So now we've got this nice flat surface here, which we can add some additional details to. I think it's probably coming out a little bit too much. And let's add some little details in here. So I'm going to add in a cylinder and scale it down, rotate it on the X90, and this is sort of going to slot into this area here. And we can delete that back face there. Add a little bit of detail to it. If you don't like the Ngon, you can delete it. We can extrude these and then merge at center to create a point in the middle. It's going to duplicate this, Control L, Shift D. Maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger to differentiate it. And then I might just pull these out. So it's a bit further forward. Something like that. could probably bring this whole thing down. Let's select our sharp edges and we'll mark sharp. Looks like we've caught a few which we are not wanting to mark sharp, so let's unmark those. Alright, let's shade it smooth, add our auto smooth. Nice, and we could probably further shape this now that we've got a sort of final look. Possibly make this a little bit more curved up there, or add in some more details, but we'll leave that for now. Alright, I'm going to hide my template images again, I don't need them. And the last bit of armor, or the last sort of hard surface prop we're going to make is the backpack. This one's a little bit more in depth, so again I'll speed through this and just comment on anything interesting as I go along. So let's add in a cube again. And we want this to sort of cover up the strap, so we want it to be about this size. I'll line up with the base of the helmet and bring this down. And of course we're going to want to split it in half, delete one side, and add our mirror modifier. So I'm basically going to add in a bunch of edge loops, and I want to round off the top and base. So rounding off the top, just manually essentially reposition these edges, vertices. Something like that. And then I'm going to create this sort of inverted round bit here. Going to extrude all of these faces out, and I kind of want to round off the top. I want to keep these straight, so I'm just going to snap them in line. And down here, I'm going to extrude these faces out, and I want to sort of curve them outwards. And I'm going to delete these faces in here, so I want this curve to continue up. Then want to curve the bottom here, so we might even make another extrusion of these faces, and then pull these ones down. Nice sort of angled shaping in here. Gonna grab these front faces, pull them out. So I want to extrude out this detail on the side here, so I'm going to use the knife tool to cut some shapes in. Clean this up by bringing it through to the other side. And I'm going to pull this one sort of down, so I want this to sort of line up with that curve. Alright, something like that. We'll grab these faces and we'll extrude them out. Might extrude them on the X and then SX0. And now we can sort of get some curved shaping in here, so pull all that out. And now we can extrude a little detail in here. Might even want to make this a bit bigger. So we could grab all of these, sort of pull them across on the X. Let's grab all of these faces here. We'll inset them. We'll delete these faces here. Then we'll pull across these edges. And we might just want to straighten things up a little bit. Going to extrude this part out. Going to round off this sort of top here and the side. Gonna extrude this out again. I want to scale this one or move this one sort of inwards now. And we're just going to round this all off. And now we want to connect the bottom part here. So I'm going to delete these faces there. And now I'm going to try and connect everything back up together. So I want this piece to be roughly the same width as this one here. It has messed up the top, so let's just move this out a little bit. I'm going to extrude this down and sort of move it in. And I'm going to manually create this curve. So we need to fill in this gap now. I'm going to actually merge that vertex over there, and I'm going to create a try in there. I'm going to create some faces in there. And we need some more edges here so we can combine them up, so we can fill in this hole. So Control R. And let's just shape this so it's looking a bit nicer. And let's just fix up this bottom piece here as well. Okay, let's finish this off with a little bit more detail. So I'm going to create an inset extrusion along here. Might even just completely flatten that off, so SY0. Going to create a detail on here, so inset that. And I want some sort of like fans or vent sort of detailing in this area, so I'm going to add a new cube. Going to give it a slight bend. And I'm also going to rotate it on the x-axis. And let's just duplicate this down. Alright, something like that. And I kind of also want some little vent details in there as well. So let's add in another cube. Let's shade this smooth. We'll select our sharp edges, mark those as sharp, turn on our auto smooth. Okay, that is the armor and the hard surface props all done. So now we can get onto modeling the cloth. So we're going to have this cloth that sort of comes down from the top belt, sort of connects up to the bottom belt. Then we have this cloth that's going to come from the bottom part of the belt and just sort of flow down around the thighs. So we're going to use a plane to do this, so Shift A, add a plane to the scene. It's going to scale this and rotate on the X 90 degrees, pull this up. And we'll position this sort of roughly around the back. So something like this to start off with. We're going to go to edit mode, delete 1/2, and add our mirror modifier. Turn on clipping. And I kind of want to line this up, sort of extrude it and line it up along with the top and the bottom belts. So let's just get all this, turn proportional lighting off, get that in there. And line that up. Might need to push this one in a little bit. Might make that one a little bit sort of narrower to start off with, so we can line it up with that buckle. Then we can grab this edge and just extrude it across, and then shape it inwards and down. And we're just going to keep doing this the whole way around. Doesn't matter too much if it's clipping at the moment. We are going to add some more geometry around the center. Alright, and there's going to be a gap here where we can see that sort of plate armor. Let's add some additional edge loops in here and shape it some more. So maybe we'll add 4 edge loops. And this is cloth, so we can kind of be a little bit sort of loose with how we move it. It's going to look a little bit more natural and sort of flow or conform to the body a little bit more naturally. And here we can get rid of that clipping. We want to continue this down sort of around the thighs, but instead of sort of extruding it down, I'm just going to Shift D to duplicate it down on the Z axis, and then just extrude Z from there. And I'll just pull it out on the X. Want to make sure this all lines up with the bottom of the belt. Might actually need to add some more geometry in here, considering it's a bit wider around this part of the mesh. And let's extrude all of this down, get to about there, and pull this out. And we'll just start adding in some extra edge loops and shaping it. Again, because it's cloth, we can be pretty loose and just sort of try to conform it around what's underneath. Alright, let's shade this smooth. There's no angles to it, so there's no need to mark sharp any of the edges. And I want to create one more piece of cloth that sort of comes in here beneath that one that we just made. So I might just pull this one out a little bit, and I'll add a new plane as a separate mesh. Split this in half, and add a mirror. Something like that, and we'll add a few edge loops to shape it. Shade it smooth, and there we go. Maybe bring this up a little bit. So there you have it. The modeling is done for the armor and accessories. So the last thing to model is going to be the character's head. although we won't be using the same modelling techniques we've used in the last two tutorials. In the next tutorial, we will be using sculpting tools, and we're going to sculpt the head and facial features. Thanks for watching this video. Please like and subscribe if you found it useful. You can check out our Patreon link in the description for a variety of rewards such as starting files, tutorial notes, and early access to the rest of the series. And I'll see you in the next one.